Hey, welcome to episode 13 of NES Revisited. In this video, we're going to be wrapping up July 1987. We got 4 titles to check out, 3 of them by Tecmo, and we got a Capcom title. So let's go ahead and check these out. Introducing Tecmo. For the first time, we have the first of 3 games released in July 1987, Mighty Bomb Jack. The premise of this game is fairly simple. You have to collect enough bombs to open doors to proceed through the game. Although it seems simplistic, you'll soon find out that the jumping mechanics are really strange. Press A to jump and you'll go flying in the air. On the way down, you can hold the down button to free fall faster, or hit A to slow down for a second. If you tap A repeatedly, you can float all the way down to the ground. Also, if you want to stop your jump early, you can tap A just after jumping. You can reach the roof by holding up and hitting A at the same time. It's really wonky, but it's required to succeed in this game. The red treasure chest can be opened by jumping on them and jumping again. Another odd mechanic. Inside the chest will be various items like points, special coins, and other useful items. The Mighty Coin gives you 3 additional abilities. Look at the top. M0 is your stock. You can have up to 9. If you exceed 9, you'll be punished for being greedy and have to survive the torture room. In order to escape without losing a life, you have to keep on jumping, making the counter on the screen go down to 1. If you survive, you start back at the beginning of the level, but you lose all your Mighty Coins. Pretty lame, since all you have to do is use up a coin beforehand to avoid this. So, at the base level, you hit B once and you'll turn blue. This allows you to open up orange chests like normal. Hit B again to turn from blue to orange and you can just walk into any chest and open it. Hit B one more time assuming you have the coins and you'll turn green, turning everyone into coins for a short period of time. Now there are 17 stages, and before you can go to the next stage, you have to find the Royal Room. You just have to collect all the bombs on the stage. This game is a strange combination of easy and hard all wrapped into one. There's no continues, one-hit deaths, but it's really easy to avoid enemies if you have the space to jump around. Mighty Bomb Jack is really about avoiding randomly spawned enemies that also change into other enemies flying after you. I don't really understand the premise of collecting bombs, but your only means of attack is turning everyone into coins. You can't jump on enemies or shoot them with anything. It's all about avoidance. This game is pretty challenging due to the strange controls, but it's not a bad game by any means. Once you understand what you're supposed to do and how to do it, you'll get through a good portion of this game after a short period of time. At a certain point, you will end up outside of the pyramid for some cloud platforming. The music changes, so that's nice. If you manage to make it to stage 17, but you don't find any of the crystals, you won't be able to progress. That's unfortunate because you can't go back and fix that, so the game's essentially over. If you're playing this game without a manual, there's really no way to know that. I played this game for about 2 hours and I felt like it was lacking. The music is repetitive and there are only 6 enemies which spawn from the mummy. The game keeps track of how many times you jump and divides that by 6. It uses the remainder to determine which enemy is going to be spawned next. The boring, repetitive enemies and music and the collecting of the same handful of items makes this game a struggle to play through. There's tons of levels and there is a final area, so if you're determined, you can get through this game and complete it. Maybe. Now there's 4 endings depending on how many of the crystal balls you found, and if you're playing this game blind, I highly doubt you'll finish this game at your first sitting. In order to beat the game and get an ending at all, you need to find the Sphinx statues hidden in most random places. Since there are no continues, the only way to beat this game without a map is to jump on every single square to see if there's a hidden treasure box. Since there is a time limit and one-hit deaths, this makes the game artificially difficult. Earlier I mentioned warps. Now here's a weird mechanic that I don't get. At the end of a stage you enter a royal palace room, one with just bombs that you have to collect to succeed. If you notice, when you collect the first bomb, one of them will become lit. If you collect that bomb last, you'll warp to the next royal palace room. So you can do this as many times as you want, just skipping everything. But if you do this, you will only get the worst ending, assuming you don't stop and collect anything along the way. So that's Mighty Bomb Jack. If you know what you're doing, it's really not a horrible game. It's got a couple weird gameplay mechanics, but overall, it's not terrible. Now, was this game worth it on release? I think it's good enough to purchase if you're into collecty style platforming games. It's pretty basic overall, so I'd understand if you'd pass on this one. Time for another Tecmo game, Rygar. Pressing start brings you right into the battlefield with enemies spawning from everywhere. The turtles are called Progokilais, and those roly-poly things are called Rolfers. At first glance, it just seems like a typical action platformer. You're equipped with a flying disc connected to a chain called a disc armor. You start with 3 health bars. Without a manual, you'll find yourself a little confused once you collect an item or hit the start button. When you press start, you'll see some stats and selectable options. It's explained poorly in the manual, but the main idea is that when you kill enemies, you slowly increase your tone, which is your disc armor strength. Last is used to determine whether or not you get an increase in your life, which is those red dots. In this game, you can have a total of 12 hearts. When you collect the tablets with the stars on them, it will increase your mind, which you can then use on 3 different selectable spells. Using 3 bars for power up will increase the length and speed of your disc armor, which never goes away until you have to continue. Now for 5 bars, you can use attack and assail. With this, you can attack everything on the screen for a total of 10 swings, whether you're hitting anything or not. You can use 7 bars to fill up your health 100%. Keep in mind that your tone only increases with certain enemies in the game, so you can grind out early for health, but you'll have to wait till later to grind tone. At the very beginning of the game, you can grind out as long as you want to build up your last. Once you're satisfied, you can venture off and start exploring. Take the right path and eventually you'll switch to a top-down style of play. This is a nice change. Rygar isn't just a platformer in the sense that all you need to do is get to the end of the stage. You'll need to explore to find items to help you progress. Along the way are doors with these buff dudes called Indoors Fighting Gods. They'll give you hints or items to help you along your quest, so talk to all of them. They have 5 items in total. You'll find yourself making some tight platforming jumps too, so don't always assume you'll make it. When you see the Kinatarnos, they're really tough to deal with, but you can despawn them by walking back as they spawn, then forward again. Yeah, it's a little cheap, but gotta do what you gotta do. Making it to your first boss, make sure to use any of your stored magic, because if you die, you'll lose them. Luckily, you'll restart with 3 health right back at the boss, but if you die, you'll have to either go back and grind or just keep trying. Boost up some more, beat the boss, and grab your next item, the Wind Pulley. Now you can use those ropes you saw earlier tied to stumps. But be careful, your instinct tells you to just walk over it or hit it with your disc armor, but you'll fall and die if you don't connect. Just walk next to it about waist high until he latches on, then cross. Now I don't want to spoil more of the game, just know that there's more areas to explore, more items and bosses to deal with. It's the kind of game that you can beat just by playing it long enough, since you always get a little stronger and build up health. Get yourself a map and start adventuring. I'll admit it, growing up I never heard of this game. It was only about 10 years ago when a friend of mine asked me to put Rygar on his computer to emulate it. It was his favorite game and I had no idea it existed. The first time I tried it, I didn't get it. I was attacking everything in sight and trying to figure out where to go. It just seemed boring. But giving this a chance, I realized why he liked it. He had the manual and knew what to do, had very few games and just put in the time. Rygar really was a great game for the time. It has that Castlevania type gameplay mixed with the top-down adventuring, items that help you like Legend of Zelda and RPG elements that reward you for killing stuff. I feel like this game is a hidden gem. I would have loved this game as a kid. Even though it has aged some and it's definitely not a perfect game, I had a blast. The music is not the best, but the variety keeps it interesting. If you haven't played this game yet, I'd give it a shot. Once you understand the power-ups and how leveling works, this game can be very addicting. Next up, another Tecmo title, Solomon's Key. No title music. Well, you start up the game and you get thrown immediately into a room. Your name is Dana and you must navigate through 50 rooms collecting a key to unlock the door to the next section. It's one-hit kills in this game along with a life meter that is essentially a timer that runs down. They will usually be hidden in blocks, so you have to explore a little bit even though there's a time limit. Hit the bell to rescue a fairy. These help give you extra lives, which you'll need in this game. It's pretty tough. Now, there really isn't much else to this game. Your objectives are pretty obvious from the start and you must find ways to exit each stage. It has a puzzle-solving aspect to it when it comes to getting past enemies. It's a fun single-screen puzzle that's really tough but fun. This is another game that you'll die over and over again trying to figure out the best way to finish the level but if you run out of lives, there are no continues. Luckily, there is a continue code when you die. You can press up, A, and B at the same time at the game over screen to get back into the action. If you aren't aware of this code, you'll find it frustrating to get anywhere past the first 10 stages. The controls take some time to get used to, and the platforming is a little wonky. There's very little margin of error in this game, so using the continue code makes this game last longer and less frustrating to play. Having to replay levels over after you've solved them 100 times just to die a few times at a challenging level is the most common reason people stop playing games that are this difficult. Keeping this one short, this is a really decent game for what it's trying to do. I enjoy games that make you think in order to beat the stage. Up is jump in this game, but it works well because how predictable the jumps are. This game reminds me of old PC games from that era where your only goal was to find a key to a door to move on. Although the graphics in Solomon's Key aren't the most eye-popping, the gameplay is fun and it's a perfect game to make you think. This game is worth playing and fun if you're into that type of gameplay. So if it's your thing, I'd definitely check it out. Finishing up with a Capcom title, we have Section Z. Based off the arcade game, Section Z starts off with some decent intro music and a short cutscene that introduces the main character, Captain Commando. You also get to watch a gameplay demo which shows off a couple weapons and a few enemies you'll encounter. That's if you survive long enough. Press start and you get another nice looking animation before they drop you into what seems like stage 1. At first glance, you get the shoot 'em up Gradius feel with the auto scrolling and enemies approaching from ahead. The main difference here is that pressing B shoots to the left and pressing A shoots to the right. When the screen suddenly stops, it's time to go down. Now that's something you wouldn't expect. This starts the first section of the game indicated at the top. With the first set of enemies, it's clear why you can shoot in both directions. Just like in other shmups, enemies will drop items that can give you power-ups like stronger weapons, a barrier shield, and a cool laser beam weapon, and other useful items as well. There are special weapons that you collect which can be activated by pressing A and B together to bring it up on the screen. Some of them require you to grab them first from the center, and depending on the weapon, the next time you hit A or B, it'll launch that weapon left or right. It's definitely not intuitive, so if you didn't know that, you'd most likely waste your items. Make it to the end of a section and you'll get a choice of which gate to take. So if you think this game is linear, you're in for a rude awakening. Now this game is huge. If you really want to play this one through, you'll need to either create your own map or print one out from the internet. You get lives and energy. It's confusing, but when you take damage, your energy drops. If it goes to 0, you warp back to the last checkpoint. That means the very beginning of the game, or a mini-boss, which is few and far between, unfortunately. Now, there are 6 generators in 3 major areas. If you see a red door before you have defeated the proper generator, touching it will kill you instantly. The generators can be difficult to deal with. It shoots projectiles that follow you around and are almost impossible to avoid. Defeating one will not only give access to the red doors, but it will increase your max energy as well. Also, you won't have to defeat it again if you happen to get warped back. At Section 19, you'll fight your first boss. If you win, you'll get to start at that point instead of heading back to Section 0. In Japan, Section Z was on the Famicom disk system, allowing you to save like in Zelda, making the NES version far more difficult to finish in one sitting. Getting through this game without a map will take a lot of memorization and trial and error. Even with energy boosts, it's really easy to get overwhelmed by enemies and projectiles. Like many challenging games created by Capcom, you can replay the same levels over and over until you progress. So if you're patient enough and can manage to press forward, beating this game is very possible. When this game was released, there wasn't many competitive shmups for the time, so if you like this style of gameplay, Section Z had a lot to offer. Unfortunately, the labyrinth-style layout and the quick deaths are a huge turnoff for more casual players of the genre. It doesn't make the game bad, it just makes the game test all your patience as you get lost or die constantly. I personally like this game, but I have to be in the right mood to play it for long periods of time due to the challenges. The music is amazing, and the left-right style shooting is done well. I don't think this game is for everyone, but if you're looking for a challenge in this genre, give Section Z a shot, if not for the uniqueness of the gameplay alone.
Alright, so that's going to do it for July 1987. We had a bunch of really good games in there. Obviously, Legend of Zelda, Rygar's pretty solid too. So with that done, the next episode we're going to be moving on to August. We got 5 different games to check out then. So I hope to see you in the next episode. As usual, please comment, like, subscribe, all that usual stuff, and I'll see you in the next episode.